Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2026 PGA Championship Data Dive Show. Per usual on a Monday night, we're going to take our first look at the forecast for Newton Square, Pennsylvania, and Aronimink. See what the weather has in store for us this week for the PGA Championship. We will take a deep statistical dive into some historical PGA championships, specifically all the way back to 2019, see what style of players, their profiles, shot types, things of that nature that generally perform well at PGA championships. We'll take a look at the field this week, see who in the field this week best fits those stat profiles, and of course, we'll take a look at some historical research as well. So we have a lot to cover. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and moving forward are from both the Rabbit Hole and Fantasy National. The Rabbit Hole is acquiring or merging with Fantasy National, so I'm in the process myself of migrating all of my statistics to the Rabbit Hole formatting. It's a long process, but I think I am pretty well caught up. I just have to figure out some calculations. That's some nerd stuff that you don't need to hear about. So make sure you are checking out the Rabbit Hole and subscribe to it. It has everything you need week in and week out to make the correct wagers, optimize your lineups, everything at your fingertips to be a winner on the PGA Tour, wagering the PGA Tour, playing fantasy on the PGA Tour. So make sure you are subscribed to the Rabbit Hole. You won't regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I post research every Monday for the tournament of the week. I'm going to put that on hold while I am migrating all of my files and data to the Rabbit Hole formatting. But normally, if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contests I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see the players I've wagered with my own money, players I'm using most often in my lineups, give me a follow over at X. Then lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Would not recommend it if I did not believe in it. I've worked with him for a long time now, several years. It's been a lot of fun, highlighted by the fact that we are in the middle of the 2026 Picks Challenge. We started that last year, continued it this year. It's been a lot of fun. So make sure you are subscribed to his article. It has a lot of great information. It's a great way to start your week of preparation. And follow him over on social media. Show him some support. Before we end the intro, I do have a shout out to give. A user in chat informed me last night that he had the Brant Snedeker live in tournament outright. So congratulations, Derek, on your hit on Brant Snedeker for the Myrtle Beach. And if you had success in any endeavor, does not have to be fantasy golf, but if you have any outright, if you do well in DFS, whether it's golf, baseball, maybe you're into the fantasy NBA playoffs, anything of that nature, please let me know. I would be more than happy to shout out other members of the community who have success. So make sure you do that. And then lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you. Have you made any wagers for the PGA Championship? If so, do you feel comfortable sharing that? Who do you think is going to play well? How do you think the course is going to play? Anything and everything Aronimink and PGA Championship. Put your thoughts and opinions in the chat. I'll get to those. If you're not able to catch the show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2026 PGA Championship. We're going to start normally, or as we normally do, on a Monday evening with the extended forecast look over at Windfinder. I will let you know there is still no tournament fact sheet out for the PGA Championship. So a little bit disgusted with that or disappointed with it, but nothing that we can do in that regard. Good evening, Moss. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Let's go. It's time to make that millie. We are certainly going to try and find the players that we want to focus on this week. Hopefully you've had a good Monday, good start to your week, and hopefully I can provide, if nothing else, a little bit of entertainment, but certainly aiming to give you some information as well to prepare for the PGA Championship. We take a look at the forecast for Aronimink Technically, Broomall, which is pretty darn close to Aronimink. Not exactly, on the course, but close enough. There's been a little bit of rain in the Philadelphia area. I believe they got a little bit of rain last night. Doesn't look like they're supposed to get rain today or tomorrow. But like we had for the Truist down at Quail Hollow, does look like Wednesday into Thursday morning there's going to be more rain. Now, Quail Hollow and the Truist was delayed, postponed for several hours because of the just deluge that Charlotte received Wednesday night. At least by the numbers here, it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of rain, but it does look like there's going to be plenty of it and consistent throughout the night. So, with that, you would think that the course on Thursday is certainly going to be soft. Now, I don't think they're going to have ball in hand unless we get more rain than what this is insinuating. But definitely something we need to take a long look at. And it does look like we're going to be dealing with some wind, especially Thursday and Friday. Wind into the double digits on Thursday, even into Friday. Gusts into the 20s potentially Thursday and Friday. And it's going to be chilly. Like you see, it's supposed to get to 72 on Wednesday, and then the rain comes in, and the high is going to be 59, supposedly, on Thursday. So cold and wet, rainy, just not pleasant. That said, when that weather system moves through, it's going to start warming up. Saturday, highs in the mid-70s, looks like very little wind. And then Sunday looks like the wind could come back, but highs into the 80s. So really, it's going to be important to see if a wave advantage develops for Thursday and Friday. As of right now, I would say that the Friday PM has the best portion of the wave advantage. They might have some gusty winds on Thursday, but it does look like the winds die down Friday afternoon, whereas Friday morning looks pretty difficult with all the gusty winds. Chilly, and then Friday afternoon looks like they could have some gusty winds as well. I'm sorry, let me change the there we go, the settings here in Wind Finder. So military time was kind of throwing me off there, seeing like 23 and whatever. But anyway, there's a look at the extended forecast for Aronimink. 2.5 days before the start of the tournament. We're going to have to keep our eye on this and see if a wave advantage truly does develop. Good evening, Hanka. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Roy and Ricky have my attention so far this week. Curious what you think about the current form of Dietrich, who's been playing in Live. I'm going to tell you right now, Hanka, I have no idea. No idea. I don't collect any Live statistics, so I don't know anything about what Thomas Dietrich has done. If you're looking for Live statistics, I highly, highly encourage you to check out other, professionals who might be more in tune and follow all the various tours of professional golf. I focus on the PGA Tour. So what little I know of Dietrich, he used to be a pretty good driver of the golf ball, which would make some sense for a PGA. Well, we can check him out and see what he has done at previous PGA championships. But as far as like his current form, I'm not going to know anything, Hanka. But thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Keep the questions coming. So here's a look at the forecast for Aronimink. We're going to go over to the rabbit hole over at BetSperts. And we'll take a look at some some overview statistics that we covered last night, but gives us a good reminder, if you will. Let's take a look at performance. We'll start with Don Ross. This is a Don Ross design, a classic Don Ross design. Gonna play probably much like Don Ross wants it to play or wanted it to play. In fact, I'm gonna go all the way back to 2023 just to give guys enough rounds to make it statistically significant. Your top performers in rounds are on Don Ross courses. In the field for the PGA Championship, Colin Morikawa, Xander, Victor, Bryson, Russell Henley, Aaron Rai, Brooks Koepka, Max Grazerman, Patrick Cantlay, and Minwoo Lee are your top 10 in terms of performance on Don Ross designs the past few years. We took a look at this last night, but those courses, just for your information, they're not all going to be like Aronimink, but a lot of them are. You have the 2023 PGA Championship from Oak Hill. The Rocket Mortgage, certainly an outlier in this regard because Detroit Golf Club is very easy. Similar in the sense that you got some miss room around, but definitely very, very easy. East Lake Tour Championship is a very difficult course. It could hold a major if it wanted to. 2024 U.S. Open, Pinehurst, Don Ross design. Again, Tour Championship, the Detroit Golf Club. We talked about East Lake. Let's see. Henley has a few rounds in here. Let's see some others. Wyndham Championship, so Sedgefield. The final event for the PGA Tour regular season in Greensboro. Also a Don Ross design, which Aaron Rai has won before. So you see the kinds of players that generally perform well on Don Ross designs. Colin Morikawa, what's his superpower? Iron play, especially long iron play. Xander is very good, throughout the bag, but he has always been known as a very good ball striker. Victor, ball striker. Bryson, more so in the off the tee, certainly the bomber, but he's not bad with the irons either. Russell Henley, irons. Aaron Rai, irons. Brooks, ball striker. Cantlay, Minwoo Lee, Scotty, Cameron Young, Rory, these guys that have traditionally fared well on Don Ross designs. You're starting to see a big pattern here. Guys who have not played well on Don Ross designs. A little bit surprising to see Tom Hoge, considering all of the attention on irons, and yet Tom Hoge does not play well on Don Ross designs. But you see, he was really, really poor at East Lake last year. Missed the cut at the Pinehurst U.S. Open. Missed the cut at the very easy Detroit Golf Club. Did make the cut at Oak Hill and was really poor on Sunday. So Tom Hoge has not played Don Ross designs all that well. Surprisingly, Jason Day is not. Pearson Cootie, Emiliano Grillo, Sam Stevens, Bud Cauley, Lipsky, Sepp Straka, Nick Taylor, Bobby Mack, so on and so forth. Those are your worst performers, best and worst performers on Don Ross designs. Let's narrow this in a little bit. I will go to 2024. Last night we only looked at 2025. But it's the PGA Championship. It's a major. And the more I thought about it today, the more I'm probably going to get away from difficult and long and just look at majors. Bogey avoidance at majors. Instead of what I've done the past couple of weeks looking at those specific courses. So your top performers in majors going back to 2024. This is the past 9 majors to be specific, including the Masters this year and then 4 from 2025 and 2024. Scotty, Xander, Bryson, Rory, Russell Henley, Colin, Justin Rose, Ludwig, Tyrrell Hatton, John Rahm, and Corey Connors are your top 11 in terms of total performance at majors. Guys who haven't been necessarily as good. Patrick Rogers is probably a couple of different ones. Yeah, so he's missed the cut at both PGA championships the past 2 years. Johnny Kiefer, who was an amateur for a couple of those. Sammy Valimaki. Jaeger's not been good at PGA championships. Nico, Martin Keimer, Matty Schmid, Davis Riley, David Puig, Gary Woodland. Even though he's playing very well right now, he's not been very good at majors. You can forgive him for that, considering all that he has been dealing with in his life circumstances. DJ, Brian Campbell. So there's a look at the players who have not been as good or who have been the worst performers at majors in this field. Anything else that we might want to take a look at in terms of total performance overview? We looked at the extended forecast. Looked pretty difficult in terms of wind, especially Thursday and Friday. Saturday might have a little bit of a reprieve, and the wind comes back Sunday. And I will have to narrow this time frame in to the beginning of 2025. And you'll have some players that have quite a bit of rounds, and you'll have some players that, barely have any rounds at all. It's just the way it is. I want to make sure we get as many rounds for players like Patrick Reed and Alex Fitzpatrick and Tom McKibben, things of that nature. But we also have, Sam Stevens with 88 rounds and Patrick Rogers with 85. There's no great way to do this other than, time frame. But in moderate and windy conditions, your top performers in the PGA Championship this week: Scotty, Rory, Chris Gotterup, Tommy, Harry Hall, Sepp Straka, Matt Fitzpatrick, Hideki, Xander, and JJ Spawn are your top 10 in terms of performance in moderate and windy conditions. Continue on down: Ludwig, Corey Connors, Shane Lowry, Colin, Alex Smalley, who's been playing exceptionally well lately. Players who have not been good in moderate and windy conditions: Adam Shank, Cam Smith. Again, it's only a couple of tournaments. Pot Guider's not being good in the wind. Homa not being good in the wind. Johnny Vegas, Johnny Kiefer, Riley, Higo, Joe Highsmith, Hoagie, Horschel, Lipsky, Chris Kirk, C. Tagala, Grazerman, so on and so forth. Good evening, Joanne. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hopefully you had a good double tournament week last week with the Truist. And if you participated in DFS or outrights for Myrtle Beach, hopefully you had more success than I did. Mine wasn't horrible per se. It was a losing week, mostly on the back of the Myrtle Beach. I had one lineup that finished 13th in the 20 max entry contest, which only had about 1,000 entries. But because of the alternate field event, 13th did not pay all that much. And that was the only lineup that really did anything. My Truist was fine. It wasn't great. I was very, very high on Christopher Rayton, so I hope you followed in that. Hope you stayed away from Xander, who I was also very, very high on. So, good and bad at the Truist. I was slightly positive for the Truist, but if you take the whole week, together, I had such a bad Myrtle Beach, it turned out to be a losing week. So I hope you had more success than I did and are getting prepared for the PGA Championship. Good to see you in chat. So we've taken a look at a few things, Don Ross designs and majors and windy. Let's go ahead and go to some detailed PGA Championship data. I will have you note that we, again, don't have the scorecard or the kind of the table of information that we normally get Like if I go to Bay Hill, we get the scorecard, we get the tables of information, the approach ranges. We don't have that for Aronimink. So we're going to do a little bit of guesswork here. And with that, I admit to have this file open. So give me a quick second. So that way I can have that ready for you all. We'll move to Microsoft Excel. This is the official scorecard for the PGA Championship. And you can see the yardages there. Green are the par 5s. Red are the par 3s. So we are looking at a par 70, 7,400 yards. A lot of par 4s measuring 400 to 500 yards. We do have the behemoth, the 546 yard par 4, the 15th. We also will have a drivable par 4, the 13th. It won't be drivable every day, but they have confirmed that they will move the tee boxes up at some point during the tournament and make that a drivable par 4. So there's that option as well. But those are the two outliers for sure. As you can see, the majority of the par 4s measure 400, 500. So we'll definitely want to take a look at that. And then in terms of estimated proximity, and this is from Pro Visualizer, so take this with a little bit of grain of salt. Both par 5s I separated into two true 3-shot opportunities. Reason being, this par 5 here plays slightly uphill. And this one, just due to its length, I think some players, not all, but some players will treat that as a true 3-shot hole. So if you wanted to argue with me and move, whatever it is, the 75 to 100 or the 50 to 75, if you wanted to put that in the 200 plus for that par 5, that's fine. But you really get a lot of short wedges here at Aronimink. I really think so. Just due to the plethora of shorter par 4s, 434, 413. Even 455, you have a 300-yard drive, which is, very common now on the PGA Tour. That's only leaving you with a 155-yard approach. 402, 431, 425. We've got quite a few shorter wedges. So we'll see what we think in terms of proximity, whether we want to look at 100 to 150, whether we want to look at, 125 to 150 fairway and rough. I don't know. But this is from Pro Visualizer. I wanted to provide you this information. I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into it, but there is the data in case you wanted to see it. So I'll have that open in the background. But what I wanted to go to is this. This is my first attempt at showing you all my data, my file conversion from Fantasy National to the Rabbit Hole using the Rabbit Hole formatting, total driving, distance from edge of fairway. A lot of these things Fantasy National didn't have. So what you have here, going back to 2019, this is performance of the players that finished in the top 30 at each PGA Championship. I've been consistent with that, even from my files over at Fantasy National. I always looked at the top 30. Why top 30? That's who makes it to Eastlake. That was a pretty simple cutoff I chose way back when I started. So just giving you that information. Here is the average of all of these. Again, skipping 2020 because 2020 was a ridiculous year. The schedule was all messed up. And I'm only going back to 2019 because that's when the PGA moved to its current spot in the schedule in May, as opposed to being played in August. So this is the average. This here is the average of the full field courses. So this is not taking into effect the Masters. This is not taking into effect the Truist, Bay Hill, any of those. These are full field. Valero, Houston, the Cognizant. Just to give you a baseline on showing you what is a premium generally on PGA or at PGA Championship venues. Surprisingly, putting isn't as much of a big deal. That said, you've got a couple of tournaments that it was, a decently high outlier. You've got one really low outlier. If you change that, it gets much closer to average. But you can see what is necessary at PGA Championships. Ball striking. You've got to be very good with your off the tee game, preferably your driver. And your irons have to be really good. Look how consistent the driver or off the tee play has been, particularly in the last 4. But overall, a low outlier of 0.8 from the average, high outlier of, or not even 0.8, 0.8. A high outlier is 1/10 away from the average. That's pretty congested. That's a pretty darn consistent statistic. So off the tee has been pretty consistent at PGA Championships, and I think that's going to be appropriate here for Aronimink. I think good drivers of the golf ball. So we'll take a look at some off the tee, but I also think total driving is going to be something that we're going to want to look at as well, particularly because Bethpage, I think off the tee is going to play very similarly to Aronimink. Northeast, you got this long rough. One of the viewers last night was asking, how long is the rough here at Aronimink? And I could only go by this since we don't have the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. It was listed at 3.5 inches long. I've heard from a couple of different places. Again, take this for what it's worth. I'm obviously not in Philadelphia. I'm not at Aronimink, so I can't confirm it. But I've heard there are some places that's as long as 5.5 inches long. Golf balls disappearing in the rough. So if that's the case, that means the rough is going to be absolutely penal if it is indeed that long. So, I think accuracy is going to be at a premium. And I think distance for Aronimink is going to be important to carry a lot of the bunkers that are guarding the landing areas. So I just want to see, like what we did at Quail, total driving, long and straight. So I think that's where my focus is. But we'll absolutely look at some off the tee. We're definitely going to look at some approach. I can't stress how much of an importance this is. It might not seem that much, 0.16. This is per round, by the way. So at the PGA Championship, 0.6 of a shot more important overall than the average full field course. It's just a premium. You have to be able to hit your irons very well. You around the green looks important, but then I'm going to highlight that this is a massive outlier. It's much more, closer to full field average. So we might look at some around the green, but we might not put a whole lot of emphasis into it. I am much more focused on ball striking this week. And of course we'll look at putting, but we're going to look at putting on, bent greens, fast greens, things of that nature. That's why we went through the putting at Augusta this year to see who putt well there. Moving to driving, I talked about the total driving. I think the accuracy is going to be very important with how thick and long the rough is. We might look at some distance from edge of fairway type stuff. I think there's going to be a decent, bit of rough that is close to the fairway that might not be as I don't think it's going to go from fairway to 5.5 inches of rough. I think you're going to have, a step cut or whatever you want to call it, a second cut that might be, a couple inches, and then, much deeper the further away you get. So we might look at some distance from edge of fairway stuff, but you see carry distance. We didn't get the data in 2019. That's why it's not here. But carry distance has been a big factor as well. 8 more yards on average per round. Very important. Not terribly concerned with tendencies. If you want to look at last night's show, I went hole by hole through Aronimink. So if you see a consistent, miss that you want to avoid, left or right, then you can maybe take a look at that. But I didn't see it. Green, or some more approach style stuff. Greens don't get hit nearly as often at PGA Championships, to be expected. Players go for the green a whole lot less often. That's why I do think, even though they have a shorter par 5, it might play to a true 3-shot hole, because players just aren't as aggressive going for the green. They are much less likely to hit the green. This is kind of interesting. So total shots from 50 to 100, quite a few. It's a little surprising compared to the average full field course. 101 to 150 is much less. 101 to 150, which is the range we would look at based on what we saw from Pro Visualizer, this 125 to 150. So, okay. 151 to 175, much less. Basically, it's 201 plus. So many more approach shots come from 200 plus at PGA Championships than the average tour event. Does that happen here at Aronimink? I don't know. Just because you have so many short par 4s. Then again, maybe guys club down off the tee just to make sure they're in the fairway, that they leave themselves with longer approaches. I don't know. I'm a little torn on it. Put what you think in chat or in the comments. Do you think we'll see the same volume of 200 plus approach shots, or do you think Aronimink's a little bit different in that regard? These are some proximity statistics and how close players generally are in terms of proximity from these ranges. Not a whole lot here that I like. Taking a look at around the green stuff, you see how many more around the green shots there are at PGA Championships compared to the full field average course. Sorry, let me take these away because Kiowa didn't have any sand. Lot more around the green shots. So we don't want to ignore around the green. It's going to be important this week. It is a PGA Championship. You're going to miss greens. It's just going to happen. I am kind of interested to see, do we look at short grass? Do we look at rough? I don't know. I think we just kind of want to look at around the green in general. 3-putt avoidance. Very important. Definitely want to look at that. A lot more 3-putts. And I think that's going to be the case this week with these massive greens. So we want to look at some lag putting. 3-putt avoidance. 3-putt avoidance from 25 plus feet. These greens are 8,200 square feet on average. They're going to be very tricky. Very sloped, undulated, tiered. Lag putting is going to be a skill that is absolutely necessary this week. Scoring, to be expected. Birdies, much lower. Bogeys, much higher. So we're going to look at bogey avoidance. Par 3s, about average. Par 4s, much higher. Par 5s, I think this one, I think there was only one length that year, but I'll have to confirm that, so I'll leave those in. Par 5s, a little bit higher. I don't know. So anyway, there's a look at some deep statistical data into the past, 6 PGA Championships. Again, the big takeaways here, the heavy emphasis on ball striking in particular. Off the tee has been extremely consistent the past 6 PGA Championships. various styles of courses: Valhalla, Oak Hill, Southern Hills. Kiowa being a coastal course, Bethpage, the brute that it is. Off the tee has been very consistent in how important it is to a player's success for the top 30. Emphasis on ball striking. I still like total driving, but we'll take a look at off the tee as well. Carry distance, I think, is going to help at Aronimink. Scoring opportunities, I don't know if we want to look at 200 plus because that's what generally is mandatory at PGA Championships, or do we look at more of the course and how many short par fours there are, and look at something like 100 to 150? I don't know. Definitely going to look at some around the green. Definitely look at some lag putting. So yeah, that is some of the deep statistical dive into the data around the past 6 PGA Championships. So let's go back to the rabbit hole, figure out the players in the field this week who are going to fit the mold of these patterns from the past 6 PGA Championships and the players who have typically performed well at the past PGA Championships. So we're going to start off the tee. We'll look at this in a couple of different ways, but just in general. No filters, no nothing. Last 24 rounds. Your top off the tee players in 2026. Those players have been Cam Young, Rory, Bobby Mack has been excellent off the tee lately. Michael Brennan, Ludwig, Jordan Smith, Xander, Scotty, Christopher Rayton, and Minwoo Lee. Your top 10 in terms of off the tee. We'll take a look at off the tee in majors. I think that could be very useful as well. We'll back this out to 2024. Top off the tee players in majors. The past 9 majors. Bryson, Chris Goddard, Xander, Rory, Bobby Mack, Mav McNeely. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's do all rounds here. My apologies. Let's try this again. Bryson, Rory, Chris Goddard, Xander, Bobby Mack, Cameron Young, Mav McNeely, Terrell Hatton, Ludwig, and Scotty. Top 10 in terms of off the tee at majors. I still like total driving. So we're going to look at total driving. Players who are long and straight. Your top total drivers. Alex Fitzpatrick, you notice he's got 8 rounds now. That is including the Truist. Michael Brennan, Cameron Young, Scotty, Ludwig, Kurt Kitayama, Harris English, Minwoo Lee, Siwoo, and Sam Stevens. Most of these guys are pretty balanced, with the exception of Minwoo, who is more distance than accuracy. Siwoo is much more accuracy than distance. But most of these guys are fairly balanced, like Fitzpatrick 14th and 8th. Brennan 4th and 53rd is fine. Scotty essentially top 30 to 35 in both is fine. One of the better total drivers. Definitely going to look at total driving in majors when the conditions get very, very tough. Your top total drivers in majors. Keith Mitchell, it's only 1 tournament, maybe 2. Two PGA Championships in which he missed the cut, but he was excellent in terms of off the tee for total driving. Yeah, 18th and off the tee. Max McGreevy, Alex Smalley, Xander, Terrell Hatton, Rico Hoey, Ludwig, Corey Connors, Adam Scott, Keegan, and Tom McKibben. Your top 11 in terms of total driving at majors. And then lastly, I'm just going to look at carry distance this year. Guys who have just been hitting it far. Hit ball long way in air. Pot Guider, Nikolai and Rasmus Højgaard, Michael Brennan, Minwoo, Gary Woodland, Rory, Kurt Kitayama, Ludwig, and Johnny Kiefer. We'll go to approach. Top approach players last 24 rounds. Colin Morikawa, J.J. Spawn, Ludwig, Brooks, Adam Scott, Alex Fitzpatrick, Xander, Gary Woodland, Kurt Kitayama, and Rory. Cameron Young, Daniel Berger has been hitting his irons very well lately. Really, that's a little surprising because he doesn't have much to show for it in terms of success. Okay, so it's really from the API. That's about all. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Straka, Matt Fitzpatrick, Alex Smalley. Guys who have not been good with their irons. Bobby Mack. Hey, good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping to chat. Much appreciated. Hopefully you had a good double tournament week last week. Played all the Christopher Rayton, who I was very, very high on. You stayed away from the Xander, who I was also very, very high on. Hopefully you had a lot of success last week. You're ready for the PGA Championship this week. All in on Rory and Siwoo. Morikawa, 50% plus of each. I don't know how I feel about Morikawa. You know, him withdrawing from the Truist, like, was that his back? Was he just being careful with the PGA coming up the next week? I just don't know. Normally, I stay away from those kinds of guys and make sure that they're 100% healthy. I think a lot for me on Morikawa will depend on ownership. You know, if he's 10%, then I'll probably play him. If he's like 15 plus, then I'll probably stay away. Rory killed me last week, was winning big until round 3. Yeah, I got to admit, the Truist was slightly, and I mean the slightest of slight, positive for me. I turned a little bit of a profit. All of it and more was given away at Myrtle Beach. I was horrendous at Myrtle Beach, so was not a winning week for me. Truist was fine. It was, like I said, I turned about a 2% profit. You know, essentially broke even, slightly better than that. I played a lot of Rayton, who I was very high on. You know, I had a lineup with Rayton and Fitzpatrick, which helped. I played a whole lot of Xander, which didn't help. So, good and bad. But hopefully you're ready for the PGA Championship. Good to see you in chat this evening, Phil. Taking a look at... Who are we taking a look at? Oh, Bobby Mack. Saying that his irons have been horrible. Yeah. He hit his irons a little bit better around Quail, but still not great. You see, he has lost 7.5, 13.5, 14.5 shots the past 10 rounds. That's not good. It's not good. Now, he's been excellent off the tee, but really, really bad with the iron. So, a little good, a little bad there. Had the M outright. Oof. I don't know how you can... I said it verbatim last week. I don't know how you can trust this guy. And he goes out and, finishes, 5th or whatever he did. All the power to you. I hate to hear that you didn't have the Sungjae, or hate to hear that you didn't hit the Sungjae outright, but kudos to you for having it, because I wasn't there. Some other players who have not hit their irons very well lately: Adam Schenk, Nico, Matt McNeely. Been really poor with his irons lately. Ricky Castillo, Marco Pinge, English, who really burned me at Doral. Although he did play better at Quail last week. Top 25 finish, but the irons still weren't great. So, Big Griffin, Davis Riley, Cam Smith, DJ, J-Day. All right. So those are the players who have been very good and not very good with their irons past 24 rounds. We'll take a look at 100 to 150. I don't know. This one's tough because we saw in the historical PGA Championships, it's mostly 200 plus. But with Aronimink and all the short par 4s, maybe it is 100 150. Your top 100 150 players this calendar year, take this with a lot of grain of salt. Like Jason Duffner, it's 1 round. Alex Fitzpatrick's been very good from close range. Michael Block, it's 1 round. Jarvis, Ryan Gerard, Snedeker, Corey Connors, Colin Morikawa, Siwoo, Chandler Blanchard, Hoagie, Rye, Bridgman, Hindley, Batia. Okay. If we look at 200 plus, which is normally what is demanded of these players at PGA Championships, again, big grain of salt here. Kazuki Higa, Ludwig, Brooks, Adam Scott, Sudarshan, Michael Brennan, Siwoo, Rasmus Højgaard, Rasmus Nergard Peterson, Sepp Straka, Alex Fitzpatrick, Rory, Hideki, Matt Fitzpatrick. Boy, I don't know if you all realize how bad Hideki was last week. I mean, he finished next to last, 71st out of 72. Lost 4 3/4 with the driver. Lost 3 with the irons. The putter was really bad. Oof. Like, I'm going to probably be nowhere near Hideki. I don't know how you can be very confident in Hideki with the form that he's been. He's just been so inconsistent. Yeah, it was rough. Hoagie Killjoy, you seem to be a big Hoagie truther, Phil. I just worry about Hoagie on these longer golf courses. Like, he does his best work on shorter tracks because he's not long and he's not accurate off the tee. Yeah, I'm off Hoagie now. Okay. I will take a look at fairway and rough 125 125 to 150 just because of Pro Visualizer. Again, I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into this. Aaron Rye, Snedeker, Brian Harmon, Chandler Blanchard, Batia, Bridgman, Casey Jarvis, Pearson Coody, Corey Connors, Adam Scott, and then rough 125 to 150. Alex Fitz, Gerard, Rory, Casey Jarvis, Siwoo, Ryan Fox, Connors, Vegas, Tom Hoagie, Cameron Young. Again, I don't know what I'm going to do for proximity this week. I feel like I want to do 200 plus, but I don't know. I don't know how many 200 plus approaches there will be at Aronimink with all the short par 4s. So I'm a little bit undecided there. What will happen, or what will definitely be needed, no doubt about it, is some around the green play. You're going to miss greens. These players are going to miss greens. It's a PGA Championship. Your top around the green players coming into Aronimink: Matt Fitzpatrick, Snedeker, Scotty, Patrick Cantlay, Sung Jae, Cameron Young, Jason Day, Brian Harmon, Ludwig, and Sahith Theegala. Wyndham Clark, Putnam, Patrick Reed, Russell Hindley, Novak, few more a little bit further down. Absolutely no doubt about it. You're going to need to be good around the green. Putting. Definitely going to look at some putting. We'll first take a look at bent. These are bent grass greens here at Aronimink. And we'll look at fast bent greens. Might be a little bit of a smaller sample size, but it's the PGA Championship. They're going to be fast. Thursday might be the exception with the rain. They might be pretty receptive and, a little bit slower, but I bet you by the time Friday rolls around, these will be pretty darn fast already, so long as we don't get a ton of rain, which isn't in the forecast. So we're going to look at fast bent greens. Your top putters, fast bent greens: Denny McCarthy, Keegan, Max Homa, Cameron Smith, Braden Shattuck, the PGA professional, what do they call the Gainbridge something? These are the 20 PGA professionals. He's part of that group. Billy Horschel, Justin Rose, Victor Hovland, Harris English, Brian Campbell, McCarty, Fleetwood, Burns, Pearson Coody, J-Day, rounding out the top 15. If I clear those filters, lag putting is going to be absolutely necessary this week. So let's narrow this into 2026. Your top Approach putt, meaning who's really, really good lag putting. Casey Jarvis, Michael Block, Patrick Cantlay, Spieth, Justin Thomas, Alex Noren, Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood, Keegan, Billy Horschel, JT Poston, Connors, Kitayama. 3-putt avoiders. Combination of good lag putting and still making your, 4 to 5 footers, 6 to 8 footers, however you want to view it. Bridgman, Snedeker, Ricky Fowler, Scotty, Castillo, McCarty, Nick Taylor, Billy Horschel, Sadier, Burns, Campbell, Rayton, Sudarshawn. So we're going to have some lag putting in here, definitely. In fact, if we look at putting ranges, this is showing you make percentage. I don't know if I want make percentage. I just want guys that are going to avoid 3 putts. So, All right, let's do scoring. We're definitely going to look at majors for obvious reasons. Set this back to 2024. The past 9 majors. Bogey avoidance. Andrew Putnam. It's only, I think, 1 tournament. The Valhalla PGA Championship. Solid bogey avoider at that one, but it's only 1 tournament. Xander, Scotty, Billy Horschel, Jason Day, Rory, Max Homa, John Rahm, Bryson, Rose, Morikawa, Cantlay, Henley, Matt Wallace, so on. If you want to look at birdies, again, this is just in majors. Bryson, interesting to see John Perry. What did he play? Probably an Open Championship. Yeah, so he did really well at last year's Open Championship. And then missed the cut at the PGA at Quail last year. But made birdies. Didn't avoid bogeys. Okay. Probably a little bit more confident this year. That's kind of interesting. Scotty, Rory, Harry Hall, Ludwig, Victor Hovland, Noren, Rose, Xander, Rayton. Okay. Last thing, let's take a look at the par 4s. We took a look at par 3s last night. Let's take a look at par 4s tonight. Particularly the 400 to 500. So both of these columns here. Terrell Hatton played the Masters well. Those ranges. Ricky, Rory, Cam Young, Scotty, Siwoo, top 15 in both. Kurt Kitayama, top 15 in both. Ludwig, top 25 in both. Cartrude, it's only 2 rounds, and that's from the Puerto Rico, so take that with a grain of salt. Xander, 20th in both exactly. Aaron Rai, 20th, 30th. Woodland, 27th and 6th. Okay. If we sort on the longer one, again, Scotty, Gary Woodland, Rory, Kitayama, Siwoo, Terrell Hatton, Young, Xander, Ludwig. Okay. Batia. Batia was down there towards the end. All right, last thing for this evening. Take a look at performance for the field at PGA Championships. We did a little bit of this last night. I don't have all of it color-coded. Players in orange are alternates as of right now. I don't think Finau, Hoagie, or Kevin Yu have gotten in. Could be wrong with that. I haven't had a chance to be on my computer much today. Had a lot to do, but yeah. So you can see like Victor 5 for 5, average finish of 21st. He's ball struck it well at these PGA Championships, Shane Lowry has been good. Scotty's been very good. Missed the cut at Pinehurst. Rory, excellent, especially in the ball striking. Keegan's been excellent, especially in the ball striking. Xander, of course, winning twice in 2024. So if we sort just on the major strokes gained categories, let's start with off the tee. And this is per round. So obviously, Shattuck and Linehan, they are those gain bridge guys, so we didn't get stats for them. But your top off the tee players, Pinge, it's only one event, but he averaged gaining 1.5 per round. It's pretty darn strong. You see Goddard missed the cut in his one PGA, but gained 1.25 per round. Keith Mitchell, ball striking it well, not very good short game. Bryson doing Bryson things, gaining a lot. In terms of off the tee, RNP just can't putt to save his life. Ryan Gerard's been excellent ball striking. Look at that. It's only one tournament, sure, but excellent ball striking. Xander, Cameron Young, Shane Lowry, Bernd Wiesberger. Okay. Pendrith. Nico Echeverria has been excellent off the tee. Davis Riley, Cantlay, Keegan, Rory, Scotty. And then I guess the only other one I'll focus on tonight is the irons. Who's hit their irons the best at these PGA Championships. Andy Sullivan is one time, Gerard one time, Vic, Kurt Kitayama, Scotty, Akshay, RNP, Harris English, Tagala, Rory, Sepstraka, Lucas Glover. Look at that, 4 for 4. Average finish of 30th. He's gaining in all 4 major strokes gained categories. Okay. Stuart Sink, Keegan, Seabez. Finau's been good with the irons if he gets in. Rio, Brooks. All right. So that's what I have for you all in terms of a data dive show this evening. Brings back to the rabbit hole. Thanks to Moss, Hanka, Joanne, and Phil for jumping into chat. Very, very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. Always appreciate it. I love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. No research to post. I've put that on hold, considering I'm trying to migrate my files and my data from Fantasy National to rabbit hole formatting. And as you saw from the spreadsheet just a little bit ago, there's a lot of data there. So it can get a little bit noisy. I don't know how to clean that up to make it, more user or viewer friendly. I might not be able to. I'll try to pick out the parts that are important week in and week out. But no research posted this week. But as always, I'll have my betting card and top player usage posted on social media after Wednesday night's show. So stay tuned for that. So thanks again for all the support. Very much appreciated for all the wagers you've made so far this week for the PGA Championship, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the PGA Championship. And until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.